Hey everybody, this is Kayce Bragg, therapist in South Carolina, part of Synergy eTherapy. I just wanted to come on for a little bit tonight and talk about how to deal with the holiday blues. I know that the holidays can be really, really hard for a lot of people. It can be really difficult. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stress. Not everybody has great family situations. Some people have dealt with the loss around the holidays. So there can just be a lot of stress and a lot of different things that are happening, around the holidays. Okay, so before we get started any further, I am clicking around on my phone to see if I can figure out how to see who's coming on, because I'm not that skilled with this. There we go. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about how to beat the holiday blues. There are a lot of different things that you can try. And I'm happy to take some questions if anybody wants to come on and ask some questions. And, if you can't make it, if you're not making it to see this right now, don't worry about it. It'll be posted later. If you want, if you think, I have a friend or a family member who really needs to watch this and think about, how to deal with the holidays and remain happy and having it, maybe happy is not the right word, but remain okay and keep having good mental health, then this will be posted later and you can share it with them. And if you think about some questions later, feel free to either send me a message or comment under the video after it's posted, and I'll be happy to get back with you with conversation about, whatever it is that you're thinking about. So I think one of the most important things to talk about with the holidays, is all of the different types of stress that you might be dealing with, and then ways to combat that stress. So there's family stress, right? I touched on this a few minutes ago. There's family stress. There is financial stress. There's, time with just the pure, having to go lots of different places and have lots of different things happening with your schedule where you're expected to be. That can be really stressful. If you've got kids, that can be really stressful, even if you don't, but that's one unique type of stress because there's a lot going on. They're telling you all the things they want, you're trying to meet everybody's needs and make everybody happy. Then if you've got some mental health problems, issues that you've dealt with in the past, on top of all of the other stress from the holidays, it can be really, really hard to try to just balance everything and feel good. And so healthy boundaries are one of, I would say, the most important things when it comes to, just doing the best you can to keep yourself in a good place over the holidays. And what that means, it can come in lots of forms. So healthy boundaries are whatever works, whatever your limits are for yourself, and they're not the same for everybody. So, no one can tell you what your boundaries should be. It's whatever is comfortable for you, what works for your life, and what makes you as happy and healthy as you can be. So one area that is really touchy for a lot of people, but really important to think about and also keep in mind, is boundaries with your friends and family. I share with people quite often through my work that if your family is not healthy for you, then why would you treat your family relationship differently than you would any other relationship in your life? And by that I mean, people will say, well, I have to go. She's my mom, or she's my sister, or he's my brother, or whatever. And I think we feel that pressure that because of the relationship, we're obligated. And if that works for you, then that's wonderful. But if it's not a healthy relationship, if it's too stressful, if it's toxic, sometimes it's drama. It could be that, you guys don't get along. Could be that they, you don't like being in their home. I mean, it's different for many different reasons. But what's important is that if it is not healthy for you, you keep those boundaries and you don't do it. And if that means that you can't go to the family celebration, of course they would like to have you there, but what's most important, right? That you keep positive mental health and are taking care of yourself. That's what's most important. So if that means you have to cut something out, then, you just have to cut something out. That's just kind of what you have to do to be healthy. One important thing to remember is that when you're communicating with your family or your friends, if it may be, about anything, it might be about, I can't come to this. And by the way, it's okay to say no. Not only about family celebrations, but about any of the holiday events that are taking place. It's okay to say no if you can't make it, or if you don't feel like you can do it. And what's important, and it could be even just you're at the family celebration and you are trying to communicate with, family members, and they're asking questions and you're trying to figure out, how to approach things with them. Part of keeping healthy boundaries is, and good communication is being assertive, but not aggressive. So, being assertive is kind of asserting your needs and, asserting, what it is about yourself that you want to portray in a way that is respectful and kind to other people. But communicates your point. And if you have to be firm, it's okay to be firm, as long as you're respectful and communicate your needs. Being aggressive would be if you are yelling or being forceful or being disrespectful. Those are some of the things that could be portrayed as aggressive, and it's not an effective communication skill. So it's not likely to help get your point across. So an example of that could be that you could say, I am not coming to Christmas because I don't like you and I don't want to be there and I have nothing to say to you. That would be considered aggressive. An assertive way of saying it could be, I'm sorry, I just don't feel like I'm going to be able to make it this time. I'm not feeling great. I just don't think that it's going to work for me. I think that if I come, I'm just going to feel worse, and it's not going to be a very, positive thing in my life. So that's one way that you could say something. And even if you're declining an invitation, you don't necessarily have to explain why. You can, but you don't have to. And the same thing goes for if you're at the celebration. And I know this is something people talk about a lot. Or a gathering of any sort, and your family's asking you questions about your life, and you're feeling sort of bombarded or uncomfortable, you don't have to answer. I mean, again, you're not obligated just because they're your family. If you're uncomfortable, then keep those boundaries and give some sort of assertive answer like, I'm just not really thinking about that right now, or, I just don't even want to, get into that. I just want to enjoy our time together and not talk about it, or I'm not comfortable with talking about that. I mean, don't be afraid to set those boundaries, and stand your ground, because it's okay. Sometimes people might try to make you feel like it's not okay, but it is okay. What's healthy for you is okay, as long as you're respectful of other people. So that's just a little bit about boundaries with, your friends and family, people who are around you. Could be coworkers, could be, anybody that you're in communication with. Another type of boundary that it's really important to keep during the holidays is financially, and that just means, financial strain around the holidays is really hard. It's difficult. We feel all this pressure to buy all these gifts and buy gifts for everybody we know. And it's just important to kind of know what your boundaries are and then be willing to stick to that. So not overstretching yourself financially. By that same token, not overstretching yourself with time, not committing to too many things, more things than you can do, or too many things that are too stressful for you. So those are different examples of boundaries that it's important to keep in place. So boundaries are important in life in a bigger picture than just the holidays. But this time of year, it seems like they're extra special. They're extra important because it's so simple, easy to let your life get out of control. And before you know it, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got too much to do. I've spent too much money. I'm obligated to go to these things with people I don't want to be around. And it just can be really easy to reach that point when the holidays are happening. And everybody's talking about family, and everybody's talking about getting together and giving gifts and eating. That's another one. If if that's a particular issue for you, then, eating and continuing to indulge a little bit because it's the holidays, but continuing to keep up your healthy eating habits, and keep boundaries for what works for you, and not just indulge in everything that you see all the time for, 2 solid months. So that's another thing that can make a big difference. The other piece I feel is really important that I'd like to talk about today is self-care. So self-care, I was going to talk to you guys about stress management tips, but that really, I feel like self-care and stress management are really almost one and the same. So it's just, a way of making sure that you're taking care of yourself and doing the things you need to do to be healthy. So boundaries actually could be one of those things. But these are things like exercise. Guys, I cannot tell you enough. Exercise is really, really important. Really important. It is vital to not only your physical health, but your mental health. It's amazing stress relief, really, really good for your brain, give you a chance to unwind, and just get moving and do something. If you've got depression or anxiety, many other things as well, but those are 2 really common conditions. It makes it really hard to want to get up and do stuff, but I promise if you can make yourself do it, it's going to help make you feel better. So getting some exercise is one really important thing. And it could be, in many different forms. It could be that you just go take a walk. Maybe you take one of your family members or a friend or somebody with you. Maybe you pop your headphones in and listen to a podcast or listen to music. Take a walk or work out in the gym or do a class or work out at home in your living room. Like I know my children love to work out at home in the living room with me, and it's good for them too. So, lots of different options, different things that you can try for exercise. Healthy eating habits, which I touched on a minute ago as part of boundaries, is also part of self-care. So, you don't have to be perfect, but just trying to make good decisions, eating food that fuels your body instead of just, eating junk all the time, making good choices in that area. And then that, self-care is so unique to the individual. So it's kind of whatever makes you feel good. It's whatever makes you unwind, feel good about yourself, feel like you're taking the opportunity to pour into yourself. So take a bubble bath or a hot shower, reading. Potentially for some people. Some people don't like to read. Binge your favorite Netflix show. I wouldn't suggest doing it for, 12 hours a day, but for, an hour or two, something like that, if you've got the time and you're not going to feel guilty about not doing other things, because that's counterproductive self-care. If that makes you feel good, then that could be it. I like to knit and crochet, so crafting with my hands. For me, that's calming and that's a good self-care. I'm trying to think what would be some other more popular. I was going to say, hey, tell me in the comments, what's your self-care? There's only 2 people on right now, but tell me in the comments, what's your self-care routine? What's one of your favorite things to do? It could be spending time with people, or it could be being alone. I mean, it just depends. If being alone, I know for myself, I like being with people, but I also find that having that alone time with myself kind of recharges my batteries. So both, just kind of depending on where you're at. Okay, Lisa says going for lunch. That's great. Yeah, going for lunch, going out to eat, spending time with someone, because you probably have a lunch date of some sort, going and just talking it out and having a good time. Barbara says she recently started meditation. Yes, meditation is great. That's a really awesome way to kind of calm your mind. It doesn't work for everybody, but if it works for you, it's a great technique. Calm your mind and just, get kind of peaceful and in that place that you feel balanced. Because it's really all about balance. That's what this is all about. That's what self-care is about. Creating that balance in your life where you feel most equipped to be able to go on and handle your life. And a lot of people overlook self-care and they think that, oh, well, I don't have time to do things for myself, or they feel guilty, or they feel like they should be doing something more productive. And that's a valid opinion to have, but only sometimes, because if you don't take care of yourself, how can you possibly keep going taking care of other people, taking care of your family, doing your job effectively? So our Shout Out Loud event, which is an event, a suicide prevention event that Synergy sponsors and helps put on in Minnesota, says many people tell us they like live music as an outlet. Yes, live music is a wonderful outlet. My mom is watching now. Hey, Mom. Tell me, Mom, what your favorite self-care activity is. Make a comment. What's your favorite self-care activity? And you know what? That's another one for me. I like talking to my mom. I'm the kind of person, and I'm sure there are other people who are like this too, who if I've got something that's bothering me and I hold it in, it's like poison to my brain. I have to kind of say it and talk about it to process it. And so having that trusted person to do that with can be really, really important. Yeah. And while I'm talking about that, something else I just thought of would be, if you're going to your holiday celebrations and if you're kind of feeling unsure about that, then, do a couple things to prepare, like have an exit strategy. Go ahead and decide what it is that you're going to say, or how you're going to be able to move forward, when you're done with that situation and you're ready to have an exit strategy. Have a plan. Already have ideas about how you're going to answer questions if those questions make you uncomfortable, like I talked about earlier. If the invasive questions about your life make you uncomfortable, then already have sort of an idea of a kind of party line to give them, so that you don't have to think about it in the moment. Because that might be kind of hard for you, and that way it won't catch you off guard. Another thing is, just for the holiday season, have your identified friends or family members who are people that you talk to in times of need, and sort of put them on notice, say, listen, I'm not doing very well right now. I'm struggling, or I'm going to this event and I'm just concerned about it. I don't know how I'm going to be feeling. Is it okay if I give you a call when I'm done? Or is it okay if I, text you while I'm there if I just need kind of a little boost? And just go ahead and identify those people so that you've got that ready. There's nothing wrong with that. You've got to do anything and everything you can to sort of be prepared, and that's all part of getting through this holiday season that can be so difficult for many people. A lot of people this time of year are dealing with loss, and whether it occurred around this time of year or whether it did not, but this is just a particularly hard time to think about it. That's a very common thing over the holidays, and that is another instance in which self-care is so important, to pour into yourself and take that time you need to just really kind of baby yourself, your own being, and it's, part of it is that can be really hard to admit that we're really struggling. People with anxiety and depression tend to be worse around the holidays as well. It can be hard to admit that we're struggling, but I think part of what's really important is to sort of just own it and know that it's part of your journey, it's part of your story and what you've gone through, and learn to accept it and just sort of feel those feelings, but feel those feelings with a time limit on it, knowing that you can move forward. That's what's important. What's important is not that you push everything out of your brain and you don't ever take a moment to feel what's going on. What's important is that you can feel it, let yourself sit with it, and then, in a set amount of time, even if it's like the next day, you need to reset when you go to sleep and wake up the next day, that you're able to then realize this is a fresh start and move forward. So those are just, a few things. So my mom said time with her family and music are really helpful for her, and Lisa agrees that grief is really common and really difficult over the holiday season. That is definitely one thing that we hear a lot when we work with people, that they've got some loss that they're dealing with, and it sort of brings it back up around the holidays. Okay, so we talked a little bit about boundaries, about keeping healthy boundaries for ourselves, where we know what our limits are with our friends and family, with our time, with our money, not over obligating yourself, all of those different things. We talked about, how it's important to be assertive when you're communicating with people and not aggressive. That's really important. Effective communication can sort of make or break a situation when you're talking about, communicating with your family, with anybody. But this time of year, it seems to be more family oriented than anything else. And then we talked about some self-care and some different ways that you can practice self-care so that you can more easily make it through all of the holiday stress, because the holiday stress is going to be there no matter what you do. And that's one thing that's important, is sort of recognizing, Lisa says, sometimes less is more with setting boundaries with difficult people. Exactly. Yep. Sometimes less is more. And that means that you don't necessarily have to give them this full explanation. You don't necessarily have to spill your life story. You also don't feel like you have to go spend all day. If you do have to go to something and you don't have a choice, go for a short period of time and then leave. Go make an appearance, say hello, and then leave, So sometimes less can be more. That's right. So yeah, another important thing is, I completely lost what I was saying. So when it comes back to me, we'll come back to it. Yeah, sometimes you're obligated. I got it. I know what it is. Sometimes you're obligated to go to things. Things are going to happen around you no matter what you do. And one important thing is to just sort of recognize that things are out of your control. Sometimes things are going to be out of your control, and that's okay. So just recognizing they're out of your control, which means that you can sort of wash your hands, you know. I listened to it wasn't really a podcast, but like an inspirational track, I guess it is, today about sort of easing, worries and easing anxiety. And one thing that I thought was really cool that the person who recorded it was saying was to sit with your worry. Whatever your worry, your anxiety, your concern is, sort of bring it central to your mind and sit with it for a minute, and then ask yourself, is this useful? So there are good worries and bad worries, right? There are some good worries, good anxiety that help protect us and keep us safe and tell us when it might be a bad idea to do something, and, good stuff, protective factors. And then there's anxiety and worry, and this is more often than not, that is completely useless, and it's worrying just for the sake of worrying. I'm guilty. I think a lot of us probably are. But so it's to sit with that thought and sort of imagine it kind of like a ball right here, central in your mind, and then think about, asking yourself, is this useful? Is this helping me in any way? Or am I worrying about something I can't control? Am I worrying just to worry? So that's sort of maybe a little bit of visualization, but also testing, sort of testing your thoughts. And that can really, my point in saying that is that it can be really useful to recognize what's out of your control and kind of sit with that. If you're continuing to worry about it, even though you know it's out of your control, ask yourself, is this useful? Is this thought helping me in any way? And if the answer is no, then, if you're imagining it as a ball inside your brain right here, like you can imagine it, okay, now it's floating off into space and it's gone. And I've heard it described before as, imagine your thought sitting on a leaf flowing down the river, and it gets to you and you look at it and you see it, and then it keeps going down the river and it's gone. And, that imagery might work for some people. Barbara said, focus on what is good. And anybody who knows me knows that I talk about gratitude all the time. So thank you for bringing that up. Gratitude is amazing. I read an article today about how it actually changes your brain. It is one of the most powerful tools that we have. I had a client ask me recently, well, how do you measure gratitude? How do you know you're thankful? You just do. I mean, it's just about sort of taking inventory of your life and seeing what you're grateful for, and what all of the positive things are that are happening around you that you've got, and recognizing, taking a moment to slow down and mindfully recognize what there is to be grateful for. And it may be something as mundane as, this isn't mundane, it's big, but I have food, and, I can afford to buy groceries, and I've got food for me and my family to eat. That's a big thing, not a small thing. But I say mundane because we tend to take it for granted. I think it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, we have to have food to eat. We have to live. So of course we have it. Well, not everybody does. So, it's, you can stop and look at everything that you don't think about on a daily basis as being important or valuable in your life, and then recognize that it really is. And how blessed you are to really have that. So a couple things. One, make a gratitude list. It could be a physical list or a mental list. This can be a really good coping skill to use in a moment when you're feeling particularly down or anxious, or, whatever your feelings are, to just do it in your head. And just make a mental list and start going through as many things as you can think of, or try to name 5 or 10. I usually tell people 10. And actually some people struggle to name 10 things. And I think it's, again, because we take a lot for granted that we have around us every day. One really cool activity, I may have shared this before when I've done a live or a blog or something, but one thing that I think is really cool to tell people, to suggest people try, is to write your list down. Start with like 10 things. And then when you're feeling particularly vulnerable or emotional or depressed, whatever it may be, try to add one more positive thing to that list and see how long you can make it, and just keep going. Something new every time. And like, wouldn't it be cool if you could do it for a year, and like, how long could you make your list? And it would force you to really focus on, details and a lot of things that you probably don't think about so much. So that would be a good activity to try over the holiday season as well, to help you realize how much you're grateful for. And especially right now in a society, in a world, and in a season where everybody's saying, you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. It can be really hard not to feel that way. It can be hard, and then you are comparing what you got for Christmas to what other people got for Christmas, or what you could give your kids to what other people can give their kids. And it can be very, very difficult to live up to all of the pressure when you're, we're bombarded. We're bombarded by visions of what everybody else is doing and what we should be doing. And that's a really slippery slope to go down, to think about the shoulds. So if you have this, that's sort of a good topic for another day, but in a nutshell, I'd like to say that if you have these ideas of what you should be or what you should be doing, question yourself. Who sets that standard? Who's saying that you should? Who sets that standard? And I would like to challenge you to think about setting it for yourself. And then that takes the should away. So, yeah, Shout Out Loud said, social media does this to people. Don't compare your holiday with others' holidays. Yeah, I was going to mention that. Social media can be a really big trigger for people who are comparing themselves and taking it very seriously, not recognizing that it's a curated look at people's lives. They only put on there what they want you to see. That's why you typically see mostly positive things. So try not to get too bogged down with comparing yourself to what you see on Facebook, and recognizing that that they choose what they want you to see. It's not everything. And if it's problematic for you, then shut it off. Get off of it. If it's causing you issues, you don't need it. You don't need it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up for tonight. It doesn't look like we have any more questions for right now. Beth said, thank you for a great talk and on a much needed topic. Thank you, Beth. I'm going back up because I think earlier somebody else made a similar comment. Oh, Victoria. I don't know if she's still watching, but said, thanks for doing this. And so I just wanted to say thank you guys for coming and watching. Mom said, great advice. Focus on positive, not negative. Yep. It can be hard to do sometimes, but you can do it. Your brain is very powerful. You tell your brain what to do, not it telling you what to do. Take control over your own life. Choose happiness. Anybody that knows me knows that I talk about that a lot. Choosing happiness. You guys can choose happiness. So thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me on this Sunday evening. I hope everybody has a really great holiday season. I hope you're able to use some of the things that we talk about to go forward. Yeah, thanks, Barbara. You're welcome. She said so helpful. Thank you. If you have any questions, I mentioned this at the beginning, but I don't know if anybody was on. If you have any questions that you think about later, this video will be posted on the Synergy page. You're welcome to post up under it, and I will get back with you. I'm happy to answer questions. Share with your friends if you think that they might need to listen to it, if you think that they could benefit from any of the information. And yeah, I'm taking clients in South Carolina right now. So if anybody, would like to talk about services or wants to share my, name, Kayce Bragg in South Carolina with Synergy eTherapy, with your friends or family members, I'm happy to do a free consult with anyone who wants to see about services. So thanks, guys. Have a really good Sunday night, and I hope you have a great week. Merry Christmas, and I'll talk to you soon.